Does the thought of public speaking make you break out into a cold sweat? Have you ever felt your mind go blank in the middle of a presentation? Or maybe you struggle to keep your audience engaged when you speak? Now, if you answered yes to any of these questions, you are in the right place and you are not alone. Did you know that 7 out of 10 people actually rate fear of public speaking higher than fear of death? Isn't that crazy? And so many people hate public speaking or think they can never really enjoy it. And I used to be one of those people. My name is Danielle Drew, and I am a former terrified, terrible public speaker. Now I speak on stage around the world, and I truly enjoy it. And through decades of experience teaching others how to become confident speakers, I have found that this anxiety, it all boils down to one thing: fear of failure. We hate things that we're not good at because it makes us feel like we're not enough. We're not outgoing enough. We're not young enough. We're not old enough. We're not thin enough. Not pretty enough. Not experienced enough. Not talented enough. And for many years, I thought that some people are just born with the ability to speak in public, and I was not one of those lucky people. And then I learned something that changed my life. I hired a speaking coach who taught me that public speaking is a skill. And like any skill, it can be learned. And that just blew my mind. Today, I'm going to share with you some of the things that I have learned, and we are going to get into the point where you can start to enjoy public speaking instead of fearing it. So let's take a look here. Look at my screen. Fantastic. All right. Now, what turned my bad public speaking around was understanding that the most powerful change you can make is this: stop looking at yourself. Look at it from your audience's perception, because it's not about you, it's actually about them. Today, we're going to look at what an audience sees, what they really see when they look at us talk. Because so many times when I teach this, people believe that their audience is somehow out to get them, and that is simply not true. I'm going to show you that your audience actually wants you to succeed. In fact, it's in their best interests if you do. Now, through all the courses and the training I've done, I've learned that being a good speaker, it's really just about having someone teach you the steps, showing you how, and then giving you feedback and helping you practice until you own your stage. Today, I'm going to pay that forward and show you some steps that you can start straight away to behave like someone who actually enjoys speaking in public. So today you're going to learn techniques to master your voice, tools to overcome fear and nerves, some simple tips to help you captivate your audience. You're going to learn how to create compelling talks, and finally, body language tips to make you a more dynamic speaker. These 5 elements are crucial in making you a confident public speaker that others enjoy listening to. And we're going to go through each of these and cover what it looks like when it's done well and when it's done poorly, as well as 3 ways to improve immediately. And at the end, I'll be sharing with you how to connect with me to discuss any further training if you're interested, and at a massive discount as a bonus for watching this recording. It's normally $10,000 for my training and coaching, and I give you a massive discount as a gift for investing in yourself. So let's jump in. Number 1, your voice is the most important tool as a public speaker. Without a powerful voice, you are better off just emailing your talk to your audience, because how you use your voice adds the flavor. It's like the difference between reading a recipe and actually tasting the dish. When you use your voice right, your audience doesn't just get the message, they feel it. When it's done badly, the speaker mumbles or talks in a monotone, makes it really hard for the audience to stay engaged. For example, they might say, "I'm excited to be here," but the tone is flat and causes the audience to lose interest quickly. But when it's done well, with good vocal skills, the speaker's projecting their voice with energy and variation in tone, which means that the audience is really engaged and eager to listen. So think of your voice like Wi-Fi. If you've got a strong voice, it's like having a strong signal. Everyone's connected and getting the message loud and clear. But with a poor voice, it's like having just one bar of signal and you're in the basement. It's crackly and frustrating and everyone's just waiting to disconnect. So let's jump into tips to improve your vocal power immediately. First up is to use the power pose trick. You stand with your feet shoulder width apart, hands on your hips, and take a few deep belly breaths before you speak. Now, this opens up your diaphragm, it boosts your confidence, and instantly makes your voice stronger and more commanding. Think of it like upgrading from the sound system on your phone to a full-blown sound system. Second up is the tone of your voice. Now, tone involves how you say something, and it really affects the meaning behind the words. Now, a common mistake when we're speaking, especially if we're anxious, is to use the same tone all the way through, and this is called a monotone, one tone. So instead, emphasize key points by slightly raising or lowering your voice. Now, here's a little pro tip for you. Record yourself, especially if you are a woman, because women often raise their voice at the end of a sentence, which instead of turning it into a statement, transforms it into a question. Hear the difference there? A question reduces your credibility. So make sure you're not raising your voice at the end. And finally, number 3, pace. Another common mistake, especially when you're nervous, is to rush through your speech at top speed just so you can get it over and done with. Now, this impacts on your breathing and puts more stress on your body, which makes it hard for the audience to understand you. Instead, deliberately practice varying your speed. Slow down when making an important point. Then pick up the pace on less critical information. This keeps your audience listening. So those are 3 powerful tips to master your voice. Now let me give you an example. Let's say you're on an aeroplane and you're flying across the ocean. The intercom sounds, and then you hear that phrase. This is your captain speaking. Now at this point, all you have is the voice. Imagine if that voice sounded nervous or uncertain. How would that make you feel as a passenger? Pretty unsafe, right? And that is exactly how your audience feels if you don't have a confident tone when you speak. They feel unsafe. So you need to show them that you can take care of them by working on a confident tone using those 3 tips we just covered. You know, in caveman time, if you were rejected by your group, this could mean isolation, which was a threat to your very survival. And sometimes speaking in front of a group makes us feel vulnerable to this rejection too, which can trigger that same instinctive fear response. So we avoid speaking in public, and that avoidance can make that fear snowball until it becomes completely overwhelming. Now, what's happening is our minds are treating public speaking like it's this life or death situation, even though it's really just sharing words with fellow human beings. Nobody is born afraid to speak. In fact, for most people, our voice is the first indicator that we give to announce that we are alive and kicking after birth. Public speaking fear is very common though. But rather than focus on that fear, I invite you to look at it a bit differently. Think about what it looks like to the audience if we're nervous and anxious. The nervous speaker fidgets, they avoid eye contact, they rush through their speech, and they make the audience feel uncomfortable and nervous on their behalf. You know, a speaker who is anxious makes the audience fearful and anxious too. Probably just as anxious as the speaker is, because the audience doesn't feel safe. A calm speaker who is composed and puts the audience at ease makes them relax. Now, this is one of those fake it till you make it things. Even if you don't feel confident at first, the more relaxed you actually look, and appear to your audience, the less of that anxiety loop you're going to get back from your audience. So let's look at some tips to help you shake off that adrenaline and cortisol that's pumping through your body. Let's go back to that power pose because this also works to help with voice projection. So it's a double whammy. The pose triggers this little mental switch in your brain, which boosts confidence, reduces fear, and makes you feel like you're ready to conquer the stage. Now, don't just take my word for this. Renowned psychologist Dr. Amy Cuddy did an entire TED talk on the power pose and how effective it is at handling fear and anxiety. Second thing you can do to reduce your fear and anxiety is a grounding exercise. Before you talk, press your feet firmly on the ground. Take a deep breath and slowly count to 5 and then let it out. Now, this practice helps to redirect your focus from nervousness to a state of calm. Now, for a double whammy, do it during the power pose so you get a layered anxiety reduction. And tip number 3, the sigh of relief technique. Take a deep breath in and then let it out in a big, exaggerated sigh. Just like you're flopping onto the couch at the end of a crazy day. This instantly releases tension and calms your nerves, which helps you feel more relaxed before speaking. Plus, it's a sneaky way to help reset your panicky breathing. So those are 3 great tools to help you relax before you speak. Now let's look at how to get your audience engaged. You know, not engaging your audience, it's like being on a roller coaster without all the twists and turns. The ride becomes kind of boring and predictable, right? Poor audience engagement is where the speaker picks up their scripts and they read straight from their notes without any interaction or changes in delivery. The audience zones out and feels really disconnected. Maybe you've been in an audience where that's happened. But when it's done well, the speaker's creating this lively, interactive atmosphere and the audience feels involved. When you keep your audience involved, you get these little bonuses that come. They're more likely to remember your message, stay interested, and most importantly, actually care about and act on what you're saying. Plus, an engaged audience gives you positive energy back, which makes the whole experience more enjoyable for everyone. So let's look at some ways to engage your audience. Now, many speakers start with, "My name is Danielle Drew and I'm here to blah, blah, blah." That's all about you and it's boring. Instead, switch the focus to your audience by asking them a rhetorical question like, "Have you ever felt like you weren't being heard?" Now, that is exactly what I did at the beginning of our session today. And when you start with a rhetorical question, it instantly draws your audience in because they start thinking about their own experiences. Number 2, vary your delivery. When you're talking, slow down your pace at a key moment. Now, this pause creates anticipation and keeps your audience hooked. And finally, use the name drop trick. Casually mention someone's name from the audience during your talk. Like, now, as Sarah mentioned earlier, now this snaps everyone's attention back to you because suddenly they're wondering, "I wonder if I'll be the next person she calls on." Now, it's a simple way to keep your audience on their toes and involved. Now, let's look at how to create compelling messages. Crafting compelling talks is a bit like throwing a great party. If the party's lively and well organized, everyone wants to stay and join in. But if it's dull or boring, they're just going to be looking for the door so they can go home. A well-structured talk will keep your crowd dancing and engaged. Now, what an audience sees if you've got a poorly structured talk looks a little bit like this. The speaker's rambling, they're jumping from one point to another. It's a mess. The audience ends up confused and unable to grasp whatever the heck you're talking about. A well-structured talk, on the other hand, means the speaker's delivering a strong opening, very clear main points, and a memorable conclusion which the audience can follow along easily. So here are 3 ways to create clear and compelling talks. Number one, use a strong opening statement. Did you know that 75% of people fear public speaking more than death? This fact instantly captures attention and sets the tone for your message. Second one, the rule of three. Now, this is a powerful principle that makes your information easier for you and your audience to understand and remember. 3 points offers just the right amount of content to be comprehensive without being overwhelming for your audience. So format your talk into 3 key points under the sections that you have to talk about, just like I've done in this talk today. And lastly, use analogies. Analogies are super powerful because they create a bridge between your audience and your content. You can compare complex ideas to everyday concepts to help them be easier to understand. So, for example, I used an analogy today. Your voice can be like the difference between reading a recipe and actually tasting the dish. Okay, so that's another way to create clear and compelling messages. Now, before I go into the final and my personal favorite technique, I'm going to take a moment to share with you my teaching programs and that amazing bonus you get for listening to this today. I love helping leaders become confident public speakers because I have seen in myself and in others how this fast tracks career progression and business success. And I do this in a lot of different ways. I do training, courses, programs, communities, and one-to-one feedback. In fact, if you were to look at getting the entirety of my product suite, you'd be looking around $60,000. And I've done some great training through places like the Speakers Institute, the Professional Speakers Association. But personally, I need ongoing and regular support. Otherwise, I just get overwhelmed and I do nothing because I can't get enough time to do everything. And I've actually spent a lot of money on courses and coaching that have not given me what I needed. So I created my own system for people just like me. And I packaged up all of the key elements into a membership program where you can learn and develop at your own pace without that big upfront cost. Now, because you've invested in yourself and are watching this today, I know you're the sort of person who wants to grow and learn, which is exactly the kind of person I want to work with. So I have an unbelievable bonus for you for watching today. You can join the program instead of $6.99 for just $50 per month. And if you're somebody who actually wants to make a very firm commitment to getting the best out of growing your public speaking skills and you want to join up for a year, then you can get the entire year for just $300. And that works out at half the monthly rate. Now, this is live coaching with me, plus strategies to master your voice, conquer anxiety, beat imposter syndrome, communicate with clarity and impact, and much more. And to make it completely risk-free, you get 7 days to try the program for free. And if you don't like it at the end of that 7 days, it's really easy. You just self-cancel. I don't even need to get involved. Now, all I'm asking in return for this huge discount is an honest review from you so that I can help other people by sharing what your experience has been. So if that's something that you think would be of benefit to you, click on that QR code and it will take you to the community for that low rate for a very limited time only. Now, let's jump into the last technique and my personal favorite, body language. Using effective body language is a real mastery skill set. And I've done 5-day intensive body language boot camps many times with people like Alan Pease, Australia's leading body language expert, and Joe Navarro, a top FBI profiler. And I deliver entire training programs just on body language, including in the community that I just shared the link with you for. But today I want to get you thinking about how important body language is when you're speaking to an audience, because it's sometimes an area we don't give enough attention to. And the easiest way that I can describe the importance is to say it's like subtitles on a movie. Now, when the subtitles match the dialogue, they make everything clearer and more engaging, like this one here. But if body language doesn't match the words, it just confuses and distracts us, like here. So in this case, the bondage is the bondage of love. It's the intercourse of many birds. I have no idea what is going on in this scene here. The subtitles certainly do not match the imagery. And there's another one. You are not made of fish and blood. See how the subtitles and the action don't match up? They're not congruent. The same thing happens with body language and vocal power. And this one here is actually the most highly rated failed subtitle on the internet. There's a whole category for this. I have no idea what's going on here, but the text certainly does not match the body language. So today, start to recognize that great body language really helps your audience to understand your talk, and poor body language might look like the speaker standing stiffly with their arms crossed, or maybe using repetitive or distracting gestures. I did an advanced speaker training with NIDA, which is where the actors go to study. Sadly, did not see Hugh Jackman there, very disappointed. But when we watched the video that they took of my presentation, this is the whole group watching it back on the stage, I was absolutely horrified to realize that I had spent the entire 30 minutes of that presentation unconsciously swinging my necklace backwards and forwards. Talk about repetitive, distracting gestures. I don't touch that anymore except to illustrate that one system right there. So as a speaker with good body language, you'll be using open, confident gestures, because that way your audience feels engaged and it makes your speech more dynamic and memorable. Okay, let's look at how to do it. So here are 3 tips for better body language. First thing is eye contact. When you're making a key point, look directly at different sections of your audience. Instead of just scanning the room, look directly into individual people's eyes. You can see this in the best rated TED Talks. Speakers often pause and look at individuals to create that more personal connection. Number 2, open gestures. When you're emphasizing a concept like growth, use big, sweeping gestures with your arms open wide to kind of reinforce that growth concept. For example, we've probably all heard this one, the fish was this big. But if you're using something small, use small gestures to indicate a small element. For example, the costs have really reduced. So make sure your body language is matching what you're saying. And lastly, use the anchor stance. Now, a mistake I often see my students do is when they first start speaking, or if they've been speaking for a while, they might not even be conscious of this, but they wobble backwards and forwards on their feet and they shift their weight all the time. And they do this. Instead, stand with your feet shoulder width apart and evenly distribute your weight. Then you anchor yourself and just move your upper body. This not only makes you look more confident and grounded, but it prevents that really nervous swaying or fidgeting that can be quite distracting for your audience. Now, it's also a simple way to project authority and keep your audience focused on you. And I saw just recently at an event I was in the US when I was on stage speaking, I noticed that one of the speakers had one foot popped out to the side, hip cocked, and was moving backwards and forwards. And I noticed the rest of the audience was starting to be quite distracted by it as well. So, what is your favorite body language tip so far? 1, 2, or 3. Hopefully one of those will make a big difference for you, and then you can start to work on the others. So that is all of the techniques and tools that I wanted to cover with you today. And I will remind you that if you are interested in joining the community for that massive discount, you can join for free for 7 days here. Just click on that QR code and you can join up risk-free. And if you have any doubts that it's something that you want to do, within that 7 days, if you cancel, you just go to your profile and do it at the click of the button. So there is no issues with counselling, I don't even need to be involved, but I hope to see you there. Thank you for listening to me today, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time we come together. Bye for now.